The opening scene depicts a man whose face is obscured as he assembles a puzzle of a Renoir painting whose one piece is missing. He then searches for Kim Hye-jin online, who turns out to be his childhood friend. He appears to have sent several letters to her, but all have been returned back, leaving him in the dark. The scene then shifts to a girl named Min Ha-ri, who's celebrating her birthday at a trendy pool nightclub. She calls her best friend, Hye-jin, to complain about her not having arrived yet. Actually, Hye-jin is working at a bar, as she's a poor and elusive girl with a positive attitude. After finishing her shift, she rushes to the birthday party only to find Ha-ri surrounded by rich men vying for her attention with pricey gifts. Ha-ri's boredom is palpable, but she perks up considerably when she notices her best friend. Ha-ri is ready to abandon everyone to spend time with her best friend, but Hye-jin insists that she return to the party. Although reluctant, Ha-ri obliges. Later, Hye-jin is eating alone when she receives a text reminding her of her upcoming student loan payment. Depressed, she takes a wistful look around at all the free-spirited people, making her feel even worse. A short time later, Ha-ri trips and falls into the pool, prompting a swarm of men to dive to her rescue. Hye-jin also tries to assist her, but is knocked into the pool. Sadly, no one comes to her aid, which makes her realize she's just a supporting cast member who never gets the spotlight. In the morning, the two best friends wake up in the same room. After breakfast, Hye-jin goes to an interview as she's looking for a good-paying job. But during the interview, her mediocre credentials elicit smirks from the more qualified candidates. Later, on her way home, she notices Ha-ri kissing a guy she's not even sure she'll date. Hence, Hye-jin scolds her, displaying her affection for her best friend. The two then go to the grocery store while conversing about true love. Hye-jin is very picky about her partner, but Ha-ri dismisses the idea, preferring to date whomever she finds attractive. The same night, Hye-jin is going through her emails when she receives an email from her childhood friend and crush, Ji Sung-joon, inviting her to meet. Ha-ri remembers him as a chubby loser who was bullied by everyone. On the day of their meeting, Ha-ri drives Hye-jin while Sung-joon arrives on a heroic motorcycle. Upon reaching the meeting location, Hye-jin notices a fat man sitting alone eating a pastry and mistakes him for Sung-joon, making her embarrassed. Just then, she gets a call from Sung-joon, who confirms that she's near the fountain and heads over waving. She's taken aback by how handsome and attractive he's become. Following this, he walks right past her to the pretty woman behind her, causing her to gasp in horror. She quickly hangs up the phone and flees his sight. The movie flashes to a time when Hye-jin used to be a beautiful girl who caused fights among the boys who wanted to sit next to her. She was always kind to Sung-joon and protected him from bullies. It's revealed that after Sung-joon's family immigrated from the US, Hye-jin's wealthy family got broke, and the beautiful looks inherited from her mother were overpowered by her scraggly father's genes. At present, Hye-jin chokes back tears as she approaches Ha-ri. She mentions that Sung-joon still imagines her as a beautiful girl, and that he couldn't even recognize her. So, in order to not disappoint him, Hye-jin asks Ha-ri to replace her. The latter obliges, and when she approaches Sung-joon, he pulls her into a hug. Hye-jin observes this from a distance, recalling the time she first met him. She seems to have met him while he was working on the Renoir puzzle with a small hidden face in the background. When Hye-jin asked about it, Sung-joon said that the hidden lady is staring at the man in the foreground, nursing a one-sided crush on him. Hye-jin is now aware that she has morphed into the same lady in the background. Meanwhile, the two go to a restaurant for dinner, while Hye-jin eavesdrops from a nearby table. Sung-joon is intrigued but asks questions slowly, while Ha-ri nervously replies to them. She sticks to vague comments but stumbles on a few topics, causing Hye-jin to leap up and signal madly. Soon, Hye-jin imagines herself in Ha-ri's seat as he expresses his delight at having such a wonderful friend like her. After dinner, Sung-joon wishes to meet again, but on Hye-jin's instruction, Ha-ri pretends to be leaving for England to study tomorrow. Hearing this, he appears to be sad, but before departing, he gives her a farewell gift. Later at home, Hye-jin opens the gift to find an umbrella inside. This reminds her of the past when she approached Sung-joon, who was trembling in the rain. Hearing him whimper about his mother, she pulls her scarf over their heads and places an earphone in his ear, calming him down. Before he left for the US, he gave her a puzzle piece of the hidden lady so that they could finish the puzzle when they meet again. Then he kissed her goodbye and dashed off to catch his flight. On the upside, Hye-jin is hired as an intern at a magazine company, and she arrives for her first day with zeal. While walking inside, she bumps into a man named Shin-hyuk and falls. Regardless, she bolts up and rushes inside, fearful of being late on her first day. The company appears to have hired 2 interns in their management support department, one of whom is a fashionable young woman with a snooty demeanor. Hye-jin is assigned a number of tasks, prompting her to run around hastily while the other intern simply sits at her desk. Nonetheless, Hye-jin tackles her work as she's overjoyed to finally have a job. One day, Hye-jin is assigned the task of delivering a box to the company's editing department. She heads to said location with the package, only to be mistaken for a new freelance copy editor and assigned another errand. She tries to inquire as to why she's being assigned, but everyone cuts her off and issues directives. The editing team realizes the mistake only when the real freelancer arrives. They are perplexed as to who Hye-jin is, noting that she did her tasks flawlessly. The following day, Hye-jin is transferred to the editing department for 3 months. Coincidentally, Shin-hyuk also works there as a feature editor. Afterwards, Hye-jin is taken aback to see Sung-joon, who introduces himself as the new deputy editor. She immediately hides under the desk and sneaks out while he's introducing himself to the other department members. However, Shin-hyuk spots her fleeing. Outside, Hye-jin calls Hari and expresses her concern that he'll recognize her. Hari tries to calm her best friend down and suggests she ask her boss to cancel her transfer. But no matter how much Hye-jin screams and begs, she is refused. Turns out the editing department wields too much power because the eccentric chief editor is the sister of the company's chairman. Hye-jin then returns to the editing department and confirms with Shin-hyuk that he's the one who requested her transfer to his department. Hye-jin asks him to cancel the transfer, but she's interrupted by a reporter named Cha, who summons her for a private meeting. According to Cha, the editing company's 20th anniversary is in 3 months, so she asks her to stay and work until then. Before Hye-jin can reply, she notices Sung-joon, prompting her to flee the scene. She goes into the restroom and calls Hari, who gives her some tough love, telling her to face it. As a result, Hye-jin girds her loins and returns to the editing department with confidence. She enters the elevator, only to discover that she's alone with Sung-joon. Coincidentally, the elevator malfunctions, causing her to become so agitated that Sung-joon grabs her wrist to calm her down. She's so freaked out that she forgets how to breathe and nearly passes out, so Sung-joon assumes she's claustrophobic. He then silently inserts his earphone into her ear, calming her down. Later, Sung-joon observes a photo shoot while Hye-jin looks at him solemnly. A few moments later, she's called to bring the models some water, but unfamiliar with the set rules, she accidentally makes scuff marks on the photo set with her shoes. This enrages Sung-joon, who yanks her off the photo set, hurting her. Afterwards, Hye-jin is scrubbing the floor when the chief editor walks in. She summons her and bemoans her messy hair, ordering her to improve her appearance in the future. After a long day of grunt work around the photo shoot, Hye-jin is waiting for the bus when Hari arrives to pick her up. Hari is aware that something is wrong, so she cheers her best friend up. Elsewhere, Sung-joon works late into the night until it begins to rain, which triggers his memory of a young Hye-jin using her scarf to shelter him from the rain. The water causes her hair to snarl into a ball of frizz, and she'd had to go to her stylist to have it straightened. She had asked him to keep her frizzy hair a secret, and adult Sung-joon smiles at the adorable memory. Following this, he sends an email to Hye-jin, whom he believes is in England, asking if the frequent London rain bothers her. Hye, who has been to Europe, replies with a photo of herself in London, so that the coincidence of working with another Hye-jin won't raise any red flags. That night, Hye-jin has a bad dream about Sung-joon offending her again. Despite the fact that it's just a dream, it's enough to prompt her to write a resignation letter. Seeing this, Hye gives her a stern lecture about giving up, but Hye-jin explains that her friendship with Sung-joon was something special that she doesn't want to ruin, even if it means quitting her job to avoid doing something that will sever those memories. The following day, Hye-jin drops off her resignation letter and wanders over to the editing department when she's approached by Shin-hyuk. She snarls at him and blames him for the situation, but he just teases her more and hands her an expired triangle kimbap. Later, Sung-joon calls a mandatory meeting, and Hye-jin considers just sitting through it one last time. It turns out to be a meeting for the 20th anniversary edition of the magazine. During this, Sung-joon rejects every single team's suggestion before consulting Hye-jin. She's taken aback and unprepared to answer questions, but her hesitation irritates him and he orders her to leave. Later, Hye-jin takes the delivery package in the parking lot, and as she turns around, she collides with Sung-joon, who catches her and then drops her before walking away. She's had enough, so she catches up to him and firmly tells him that he has no right to insult her without knowing her circumstances. When Sung-joon offends her even more, she wonders why he despises her so much. He then lists her poor work skills, unprofessional behavior, and most importantly, he hurts her by claiming Hye-jin's name is too good for her. Following this, she goes to the restroom to splash water on her face, but his harsh words continue to echo in her mind. Regardless, Hye-jin decides against giving him the satisfaction of firing her, but she panics when she recalls the resignation letter she left on her boss's desk. She then rushes to her boss's office, only to find him picking up her letter. Hye-jin screams at him to stop, then rushes over to tear it up. Afterwards, the beauty team girls gossip about Sung-joon's rudeness, and Hye-jin adds that he has a bad personality. She gets into a groove and doesn't notice when everyone starts waving frantically that he's right behind her, and when she does, all she can do is scream and stammer. Sung-joon retrieves the file he came to get and departs in silence, much to Hye-jin's chagrin and Shin-hyuk's delight. In the next scene, Sung-joon and the chief editor are seen discussing the termination of the editing department. He mentions that they can continue only if they can reach the top of the industry in the next 3 months, and he is here to make that happen. In the afternoon, Sung-joon attends a meeting at a hotel which happens to be where Hye works, and they narrowly miss running into each other. But as he drives away, he notices Hye in the rearview mirror and rushes back to the hotel to confront her. Thinking fast, Hye hugs Sung-joon and throws her name tag away, hitting a coworker in the head. When the coworker tries to return it, Hye drags the perplexed Sung-joon outside to a cafe to talk. She then covers up by telling him that she went to London but was called back for the hotel job. After work, Hye-jin comes home hollering that Sung-joon will never make her quit her job. But Hye is perplexed by her rage because she had claimed that she and Sung-joon had a special relationship. Hye-jin tells her about what he said, but Hye can't believe the sweet gentleman would say something like that. So she decides to keep her earlier confrontation with Sung-joon a secret. On the other hand, Sung-joon is so preoccupied with his work that he drinks plant water in the coffee shop and smacks into a glass door on his way out. At the signal, he hears a woman's voice, which reminds him of himself as a child walking down the street with Hye-jin. As a result, he calls Hye to remind her of the same, but quickly changes his mind. Before hanging up the phone, Hye invites him to meet in his spare time. Later at work, Sung-joon summons everyone to a meeting. Hye-jin encourages herself to do her best, but she crumbles in terror as the meeting begins. Her anxiety grows as she realizes she isn't up to the magazine lingo and has no idea what they're talking about. Shortly after, she's asked to turn on a video, but her nervousness causes her to grab the incorrect remote control, shining a laser pointer directly in Sung-joon's face. Hye-jin is a nervous wreck by the end of the meeting. Sung-joon is expecting the meeting notes from Hye-jin, but she has no idea what was discussed. She seeks assistance from others, but no one has the time to explain things to her. As a result, Hye-jin writes the note herself and delivers it to Sung-joon, only to irritate him. She tries to explain that she was transferred unexpectedly and hasn't had time to learn, also that there isn't anyone to teach her. However, Sung-joon asserts that she should do it herself. Following this, Hye-jin returns to the management team office and begins working as if she belongs there, prompting her boss to physically drag her back to the editing department. She comes home from work and collapses in the doorway, exhausted from her long day. Hye-jin spends the evening whining about her job and lamenting that she didn't show Sung-joon how wonderful she is, as she had vowed. Hearing this, Hye points out that every field of work has terms and phrases that you must learn. Inspired by these words, Hye-jin begins studying old magazines she finds in storage. Hye also teaches her everything she knows about fashion and makeup. Eventually, Hye-jin starts to impress her coworkers and even the chief editor with her newly acquired knowledge. She also begins to understand staff meetings and is able to prepare notes properly. One day at work, Shin-hyuk slides over to her desk and asks her to take him out for street food, but she declines. In order to persuade her, he tosses a coin, which he wins. Elsewhere, Hye is at work when she receives a call from her stepmother, who reminds her of her father's birthday. As a result, she contacts Sung-joon and requests a 2-hour delay in their meeting. That evening, Hye goes to her father's house with a birthday present for him. In comparison to her stepmother, her relationship with her father appears to be much more friendly. During dinner, her father takes a call, leaving Hye and her stepmother alone, and the latter starts harping on her. Their conversation quickly devolves into an argument, and her father walks in to slap Hye hard, even shocking her stepmother. He demands that Hye apologize, so she stammers out the words with a shaking voice before walking away. Once outside, Hye calls her best friend, but the phone goes unanswered as Hye-jin is eating with Shin-hyuk. As a result, she ends up drinking alone in a bar, completely forgetting her plans with Sung-joon. When she remembers, she calls him and informs him about her location. In the meantime, Hye-jin and Shin-hyuk depart, and she finally sees the missed calls from Hye. She tries to call her back, but Hye is sleeping on the bar, so the bartender answers and tells her where she is. Meanwhile, another customer approaches Hye with some terrible pickup lines. Uninterested, she tries to walk away, but the guy grabs her hand, attempting to harass her. Thankfully, Sung-joon arrives just in time to save her. After a while, he approaches the man in the restroom and provides him with 3 minutes to apologize to Hye. When he is ignored, Sung-joon begins rolling up his sleeves. A few minutes later, he goes out to check on Hye, who has hurt her hand, so he takes her to the clinic. Not long after, Hye-jin arrives and inquires about her friend, to which the bartender replies that a man took her. At the clinic, Hye has her wound treated before the two go to a restaurant. As they eat, Sung-joon mentions that his mother used to feed him this soup all the time and he hated it. But ever since she died, he's been looking for a restaurant that serves soup that tastes like his mother's. Sung-joon then asks her what she wanted to discuss, but she falters and decides to tell him the next time. On the other hand, Hye-jin paces outside, waiting for Hye to return home. She becomes concerned when she notices Hye's injured hand. Later that night, Hye sits in her room, conflicted, especially after Sung-joon texts her to make sure she's fine. The following morning, Sung-joon arrives at the coffee shop and accidentally sits on a notebook that someone has left in the chair. He hears a familiar voice telling him that the notebook is hers. When he looks up, he sees a young Hye-jin, who turns out to be Hye-jin's younger sister. At the same time, Hye-jin walks in looking for her sister and notices Sung-joon smiling at her, which freaks her out.